Maya was a bright and hopeful college student. She had always worked hard, focused on her studies, and dreamed of a better future. Her family was proud of her, especially her father, Robert, who had once been an important agent in the FBI. Maya knew her father was a legend in his field, but she also knew he had taught her to stand strong and never back down from the truth. One late afternoon, Maya was walking home from her part-time job at the local library. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with soft pink and orange colors. The streets were quiet, and Maya enjoyed the peaceful walk. She was thinking about the paper she had to write for her history class and how she hoped to finish it before the weekend. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a police car pulled up beside her. The officer inside rolled down the window and called out to her, "Hey, young lady, come here." Maya felt a little nervous but stayed calm. She wasn't doing anything wrong after all. The officer got out of his car and walked toward her. He looked at her with a hard expression that made her uncomfortable. "What are you doing out here so late?" he asked. But there was something in his voice that felt more like an accusation than a question. Maya explained politely, "I'm just walking home from work. I don't want any trouble." But the officer didn't seem convinced. He started asking more questions, some of which didn't make much sense. Maya noticed how his eyes kept flicking around as if he was searching for something to blame her for. The officer then told her he had received a report about someone matching her description being involved in a theft nearby. Maya was shocked. She had no idea what he was talking about. She tried to explain that she had been at the library all afternoon and that she was not involved in any crime, but the officer didn't listen. Instead, he said, "I'm going to need to see some ID." Maya reached for her purse, but the officer's tone grew firmer. "Don't reach so fast, I said ID first." Maya's heart was pounding. She had done nothing wrong, but the way the officer treated her made her feel like she was guilty already. She remembered her father's advice. Stay calm and don't argue with the police. Cooperate, but always know your rights. She handed over her student ID and driver's license. Quietly, the officer looked at the cards but didn't seem satisfied. He began writing something on his notepad. Maya felt the weight of the situation growing heavier. She looked around, hoping someone nearby would notice what was happening. A few neighbors were watching from their windows, but no one stepped outside. Maya realized that sometimes people don't want to get involved when they see something that feels unfair or strange. The officer then accused her again. "We have witnesses who say they saw you near the scene of a theft. Care to explain?" Maya shook her head. "I don't know anything about that. I wasn't there." The officer's face hardened. "Listen, young lady, you're going to make this easy or hard for yourself. If you cooperate, this will go away." Maya felt a chill run through her. She knew he was trying to scare her. The truth was on her side, but the officer didn't want to hear it. Suddenly, the officer stepped back and pulled out his radio. He spoke quietly but firmly to someone on the other end. "I've got the suspect here, starting paperwork." Maya's eyes widened. She wasn't a suspect, she was just a student trying to live her life. But she also knew that this was no ordinary mistake. There was something deeper going on, something that had to do with the officer's attitude toward her. Maya thought about her father again. He had faced challenges in his career, fighting people who tried to hide the truth. She hoped that, just like him, she could find a way to stand strong. As the officer continued his work, Maya kept her voice steady. "I want to call my father. He's a lawyer and will want to know about this." The officer hesitated but finally nodded. Maya took out her phone and dialed. When her father answered, she quickly told him what was happening. Robert's voice was calm but serious. "Stay where you are, Maya. Don't say anything more until I get there." Maya put the phone away and looked at the officer. He seemed annoyed now, like he wanted to finish quickly. But Maya wasn't going to give up. She remembered all the lessons her father had taught her about courage and fairness. As they waited for Robert to arrive, Maya noticed the officer's eyes flicking around nervously. She felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about her. Maybe the truth was about to come out. The street lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the pavement. Maya took a deep breath and prepared herself for what was to come. After Maya made the call, the tension between her and the officer grew thicker. The officer seemed less sure of himself now, but he didn't back down. Instead, he tried to act even more confident, as if trying to convince Maya, and maybe himself, that he was in control. Minutes passed slowly. The quiet of the evening felt heavy and full of waiting. Maya kept her hands calm and steady, refusing to show fear or anger. She knew that staying composed was important. Every moment felt like it could change everything. The officer continued to talk on his radio, but Maya couldn't hear much of the conversation. She guessed he was telling his colleagues about the suspect he had stopped. Maya wished someone would understand that she was innocent, but she also knew how hard it could be to fight against a false accusation, especially when it came from someone with a badge. Then, more officers arrived in 2 police cars. They stepped out quickly and looked around. Maya noticed how their eyes darted toward her with suspicion. It was clear that they believed the first officer's story without question. One of the officers spoke to the first officer quietly, and Maya could tell they were planning their next steps. She felt her heart sink. This was becoming bigger than just a simple stop. The officer who had stopped Maya told the others, "She matches the description. We need to check her bag and her phone." Maya shook her head firmly. "There's no reason to do that. I haven't done anything wrong." But the officers ignored her. One gently but firmly took her backpack and began to search it. Maya watched silently as they pulled out her books, notebooks, and a few personal items. There was nothing suspicious, only school stuff. Next, they asked to see her phone. Maya hesitated but knew she couldn't refuse without making things worse. She unlocked it and handed it over. The officers scrolled through her messages and photos but found nothing unusual. Still, the officer who first stopped her seemed unhappy. He wasn't going to give up so easily. He started asking her more questions, trying to catch her in a mistake or contradiction. "Where exactly were you around the time of the theft?" he asked, looking straight at her. Maya answered honestly. "At the library. You can check with my manager if you want." The officers glanced at each other. One of them pulled out a phone and called the library. Maya held her breath, hoping the truth would come out. After a few moments, the officer got the confirmation. The manager said Maya had been working during the time the theft happened. That should have cleared her name right there. But the first officer didn't seem to care much about that. Instead, he started saying, "We still have witnesses who say they saw you near the scene. We're just trying to understand what happened." Maya felt frustrated. How could they believe people who hadn't even seen clearly? She knew that sometimes people made mistakes or were influenced by what they wanted to believe. Suddenly, a man stepped forward from the nearby houses. He was an older man who Maya recognized from the neighborhood. His face was kind, but he looked serious. "I was there," he said quietly. "I saw what happened. That girl was nowhere near the store when the theft took place." The officers listened but seemed reluctant to accept the new witness. One of them whispered something to the first officer, and the officer's expression changed. He looked angry but tried to hide it. Maya felt a small wave of relief. Someone believed her story, but she also knew this wasn't over yet. As the night went on, more people started to come outside, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered to each other, while others just observed silently. Maya realized that news traveled fast in small towns, and everyone was curious. The officer tried to keep control, but the crowd made it difficult. People began asking questions, and some openly doubted the officer's version of events. Maya saw some neighbors nodding at her as if to say, "We believe you." That gave her strength. She wanted to show everyone that she was telling the truth. Just then, Robert, Maya's father, arrived. He walked quickly but calmly through the small group of people and police. His presence immediately changed the mood. People stepped aside respectfully and the officer straightened up. Robert greeted Maya with a warm smile, though his eyes were serious. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Maya nodded. "I'm scared, but I'm okay." Robert looked at the officers and said clearly, "I'm here now. I want to speak with the officer in charge." The first officer's face tightened. He didn't expect Maya's father to be someone important. He glanced around nervously. Robert took out his badge, not as an active agent but as a reminder of his experience, and said, "I want all evidence and reports, and I want you to explain this situation carefully." The officers exchanged glances but started to gather their notes and information. Robert began asking questions, his voice calm but firm. He asked the first officer about the reasons for stopping Maya, the evidence they had, and the witnesses they spoke to. The officer repeated the story, but Robert's sharp mind caught small details that didn't add up. Then Robert asked to speak with the neighbors who had witnessed the event. One by one, they told their versions. Most of them supported Maya's side, saying she had been far from the scene. Robert also requested to see the video footage from nearby security cameras. The officers said they would check and come back. This time, Robert talked with Maya privately. He told her, "Don't worry, I'm going to help you. We will get to the bottom of this." Maya felt comforted by her father's words. She remembered how he had taught her about justice, fairness, and standing up for what is right. Meanwhile, the crowd around them started to grow. More neighbors came out to watch. Some brought food and water for Maya and Robert. The support made Maya feel less alone. The officers returned with the security footage. Everyone gathered around the small screen. The video showed clearly that Maya was at the library during the theft, far away from the store. The officer who had stopped her looked uncomfortable. The evidence was clear, and the community was watching. Robert stepped forward and said, "This proves Maya's innocence. There is no reason to hold her any longer." The officers slowly backed away. The first officer's face was tight, but he had no choice. Maya was free. The moment she had feared for so long was finally over. But the experience left her shaken. She realized that sometimes people let their prejudices cloud their judgment. It was a painful reminder that justice doesn't always come easily. Robert put his arm around Maya and said, "We'll make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." Together they walked home through the now quiet streets. Maya felt tired but stronger. She knew the road ahead might still be difficult, but she was ready to face it. This night would be remembered not just as a challenge, but as a moment of courage, hope, and the power of standing up for the truth. After that difficult night, Maya and her father, Robert, returned home with heavy thoughts. The experience was more than just an unfair stop by a police officer. It was a reminder of the challenges they might face because of unfair judgments and prejudice. Robert, however, was determined not to let this moment pass without action. He knew from his years in the FBI that sometimes the hardest battles were the ones fought quietly, with patience and careful work. Maya sat at the kitchen table, still feeling the tiredness from the stressful evening. Her father poured 2 cups of tea and sat beside her, his face calm but serious. "Maya," he said softly, "what happened to you was wrong. And I promise, we're going to make sure the truth comes out." Maya looked up at him, grateful for his support. "But Dad, how do we fight someone who has a badge and the law on their side? It feels like the whole system is against me." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the system isn't perfect. People make mistakes, or worse, they let personal feelings get in the way of justice. That's why we need to be smart and use every tool we have." Over the next few days, Robert began to investigate quietly. He reached out to some old friends from his FBI days, people who still worked in law enforcement, but who believed in fairness and honesty. With their help, he started collecting information about the officer who had stopped Maya. What they found was troubling. The officer had a history of complaints, accusations that he treated people unfairly, especially those from certain backgrounds. None of the complaints had led to serious consequences because the officer was skilled at covering his tracks. But the pattern was clear. Robert also learned that the officer had been involved in several other questionable cases. There were reports of evidence being mishandled and witnesses being pressured. This wasn't just a one-time mistake, it was a problem that had been ignored for too long. Maya listened carefully as her father explained what he was uncovering. At first, she felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could someone sworn to protect the community act this way? But then she felt a growing sense of determination. One afternoon, Robert sat down with Maya to explain the next steps. We're going to need more than just our word. We need facts, witnesses, and proof. This is how real change happens. Maya nodded, understanding that the road ahead would be long and sometimes difficult, but she felt ready. Together they began talking to neighbors, friends, and others who had witnessed the officer's behavior over the years. Slowly, more stories came forward. People who had been unfairly treated, whose voices had never been heard. Each story added weight to their cause. Maya saw the strength in her community, people coming together to stand against injustice. It gave her hope that things could get better. Robert also encouraged Maya to speak up at community meetings. At first, Maya was nervous, but she realized her story could help others understand what was happening. When she finally stood in front of a room full of neighbors and local leaders, her voice was clear and confident. She told them about that night, about how she had been stopped without reason and how the officer had tried to frame her. She shared how her father had helped uncover the truth. The room was silent for a moment, then people began to applaud. Many came forward to thank her for her courage. Meanwhile, Robert continued to gather evidence. He worked with trusted lawyers, who agreed to review the case and help bring it to the attention of higher authorities. It was important to follow the right procedures so that nothing could be dismissed. One day, Robert received a call from an important official in the police department. The official said they had reviewed the complaints and the new evidence and would open an internal investigation into the officer's conduct. This was a big step. It meant the problem was being taken seriously, and there was a chance for justice to be served. Maya and her father prepared for what would come next. They knew the investigation could take time, and that the officer might still try to deny everything. But they also knew that the truth was on their side. During this time, Maya focused on her studies and her friends. She didn't want the situation to control her life, but she also stayed involved in her community, helping organize events that promoted fairness and understanding among neighbors. Robert was proud of her. He knew Maya was becoming stronger, not just because of what she had faced, but because of how she chose to respond. As the weeks passed, the investigation revealed more evidence against the officer. His past behavior, combined with the new testimonies, made it clear that changes were needed, not just for Maya, but for the whole community. Robert and Maya attended meetings with the police department and local officials, sharing what they had learned and urging action. They asked for better training for officers and more accountability. The community came together, supporting reforms that would help prevent unfair treatment in the future. It was a slow process, but it gave Maya hope. One evening, as they sat together after a long day, Robert smiled at his daughter. "You've shown great courage, Maya. This isn't just about one night or one person. It's about making things better for everyone." Maya smiled back, feeling proud and ready for whatever came next. This chapter in their lives was a challenge, but it was also a beginning, a chance to build a future where justice and respect were real for all. As the investigation into the officer's actions moved forward, the atmosphere in the small town began to change. What had started as a personal struggle for Maya grew into a wider conversation about fairness, respect, and accountability. People began to realize that the problem was not just about one person, but about how the whole community could work together to make things better. Robert stayed close by Maya's side, using his experience and knowledge to guide the process. He knew that uncovering the truth wasn't enough. They had to make sure the right people listened and took action. The police department's internal investigation team was thorough. They interviewed many witnesses, examined documents, and reviewed security footage again. It was clear that the officer had not only made a mistake, but had shown a pattern of unfair treatment toward certain members of the community. Maya found herself invited to meetings and forums where people discussed these important issues. Sometimes she felt nervous speaking in front of strangers, but she remembered what her father had told her about courage. She shared her story honestly, hoping to inspire others to speak up when they saw injustice. At one community meeting, a local leader stood up and said, "This is a turning point for our town. We must learn from Maya's experience and make sure that everyone here is treated with respect and fairness. Slowly, the town started to organize training sessions for police officers on topics like bias, communication, and understanding different cultures. These sessions were designed to help officers better serve and protect all members of the community. Maya and Robert attended some of these sessions, listening carefully and even offering suggestions. It was important for Maya to be part of the change she wanted to see. During this time, Robert worked closely with lawyers who specialized in civil rights cases. They helped prepare the case against the officer, making sure every piece of evidence was clear and strong. The goal was not just to punish one person, but to show that unfair treatment would not be tolerated. Maya's father also contacted local journalists, sharing the story with the press to bring more attention to the issue. The media coverage helped raise awareness and encouraged others to come forward with their experiences. One day, Maya received a call from the police department. The officer involved in her case had been suspended while the investigation continued. It was a small victory, but an important one. It showed that the system was starting to hold people accountable. Despite these positive steps, Maya sometimes felt overwhelmed. The process was slow, and the memories of that night still hurt. But with her father's support and the growing support from the community, she kept moving forward. Her friends at school stood by her as well. They helped her stay focused on her studies and reminded her that she was not alone. Together, they talked about the changes they wanted to see in the world. Robert also made sure Maya had time to relax and enjoy life. They went on walks, cooked meals together, and shared stories about better days. These moments helped Maya heal and stay strong. As the investigation reached its final stages, the police department announced a public meeting to share the results. The whole town was invited to listen and ask questions. On the day of the meeting, the room was full. Maya's heart raced as she stood beside her father, ready to hear what would be said. The police chief spoke first. He acknowledged the mistakes made by the officer and apologized for the pain caused. He announced that the officer would face disciplinary action and that new policies would be put in place to prevent similar situations. The chief also promised more transparency and better communication between the police and the community. Maya felt a wave of relief and hope. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure something good came out of a bad experience. After the meeting, many people came up to Maya and Robert to thank them. Some shared their own stories of unfair treatment and said they felt inspired to speak up now. Maya realized that her courage had helped others find their voices. She felt proud, but also knew the work was not over. Robert hugged his daughter tightly and said, "You did something important. You helped change this town." Maya smiled through tears. "We did it together." As the days passed, Maya and her father continued their work to support fairness and justice. They helped create programs for young people to learn about their rights and the importance of standing up for what is right. The town slowly became a place where people listened more and judged less. Maya saw neighbors talking openly, sharing their experiences and working to build trust. Her experience had been difficult, but it had also brought her closer to her community and to her father. Together, they had turned a painful moment into a powerful story of hope and change. And Maya knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength and support to face them. Weeks turned into months, and life slowly returned to a calm rhythm for Maya. The fear and confusion of that night were still a memory, but it no longer controlled her thoughts. Instead, something new had taken its place. Hope, strength, and a quiet confidence that only comes from going through something difficult and standing tall at the end. Maya walked through her neighborhood on a sunny afternoon. People smiled and waved at her as she passed. It was different now. The looks that once held suspicion had turned into admiration and respect. Everyone in town knew what she had been through, and many had seen the way she carried herself through it all, with calmness, grace, and honesty. She stopped at the local library, the place where she worked part-time, and the same place that had proven her innocence. Her manager greeted her warmly. "We're proud of you, Maya," she said. "You didn't just defend yourself. You helped others believe that fairness matters." Maya smiled and nodded. She still worked her shifts there, helped organize the books, and sometimes tutored younger kids who came after school. It gave her a sense of purpose and routine, and she liked knowing she was giving something back to her community. At home, Robert sat on the porch reading the local newspaper. The headline read, "Community moves forward with reforms. Voices of change lead the way." There was a picture of the community meeting, and right at the front, Maya and Robert standing side by side. He looked up as Maya arrived. "They finally got it right," he said, folding the paper and smiling. "Your story is making a difference." Maya sat beside him. "I just wanted the truth to come out. I didn't think it would reach this far." Robert nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes it takes one strong voice to open the door for many more. They sat quietly for a while, enjoying the peaceful afternoon. Birds chirped in the distance, and a gentle breeze moved through the trees. Maya turned to her father. "Do you ever miss working in the field? Being part of the FBI?" Robert chuckled. "Some days, yes, but most of all I miss helping people, solving real problems, and making sure justice was served. What we did together over the past few months, it reminded me of that. And honestly, I think you've done something more powerful than anything I did back then." Maya looked down, touched by his words. "You've always believed in me. Even when I was scared, you made me feel brave." "That's because you are," Robert replied. "I just helped you see it." Soon, letters and emails started arriving at their home. People from other towns and cities who had heard Maya's story. Some shared similar experiences. Others simply wanted to say thank you. A few were parents who told Maya how her story gave them the courage to talk to their own children about truth and justice. One letter stood out. It was from a girl named Aisha who lived in a town far away. She wrote, "I saw you speak in a video online. I used to be scared to speak up when something felt unfair, but then I saw how you stood there and told your story without fear. Now I'm writing my school about something that happened to me. I just wanted to say thank you. You helped me believe in myself." Maya held the letter close to her chest. It was a reminder that even small actions can ripple out and touch lives we may never meet. In time, the officer who had wrongly accused Maya was officially removed from duty. The investigation had confirmed not only his mistakes in Maya's case, but also his behavior in several other incidents. While the news was serious, Maya and Robert didn't celebrate in a loud way. They believed justice wasn't about revenge. It was about doing what was right. Instead, they focused on what came next. Robert helped organize a small community program at the local center. It brought together young people and police officers to talk, ask questions, and learn from one another. Maya volunteered to speak at the first event. When the day came, she stood at the front of the room. Her heart beat fast, but she took a deep breath and began. "I used to believe that if you just followed the rules and stayed quiet, everything would be fine," she said. "But I learned that sometimes, even when you do everything right, others might still judge you unfairly. That's why it's important not to stay silent. When something is wrong, we must speak, even if our voices shake." The room was silent as she finished. Then slowly, hands clapped. The applause grew louder and people stood up to show their respect. After the event, one of the younger kids came up to her and said, "I want to be like you one day, not scared to speak." Maya smiled warmly. "You already are." At school, her teachers praised her for her maturity and strength. One of them even asked her to write an essay about her experience so it could be shared with future students. Maya agreed, hoping that her words would help others avoid the pain she had gone through. Graduation day came, and Maya walked across the stage with her head held high. Her classmates cheered loudly. Her name was now known not just in her school, but beyond it. She had become a symbol of standing up for what is right, with calm, with courage, and with dignity. After the ceremony, Robert took a photo of her holding her diploma. "This is just the beginning," he said. Maya looked around, at the smiling faces, the flowers, the music, and the joy of the moment. "I know," she said, "and I'm ready." Later that night, they sat under the stars in their backyard. Maya looked up at the sky. Do you think everything that happened was meant to be? Robert thought for a moment. Sometimes life gives us hard moments not to break us, but to show us how strong we are. You didn't just survive, Maya, you changed things. Maya leaned against his shoulder. Then I want to keep going. Keep learning, keep helping, maybe even study law one day. Robert smiled. That sounds perfect. And as the stars twinkled above, Maya felt a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had learned that truth, courage, and love could light even the darkest path. Her story wasn't just about what had happened to her. It was about what she chose to do with it, and her journey was just beginning.